On this episode of Locked On Angels, what if Taylor Ward actually stays with the Halos? We've talked a lot about the trade rumors around him this offseason, but would it be that bad if he stayed? A lot of everydayers think it'd be a great idea if he stayed. Let's dive in and compare what he offers to the Angels to other options out there. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcast, including Apple Podcast, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to get back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed, we're trying to get to 10K by opening day, and you can help us by hitting that subscribe button and becoming a Locked On everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And this episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. You can download their app, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase.
Thank you for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Hey, thanks for being here with us for our third offseason here as the host of Locked On Angels. We're getting ready for our fourth full season as the host of Locked On Angels. So we're very excited about that. Right now, we're doing episodes Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Mike, we talked about doing some quick hits. We've got one quick hit, but just with everything that's been going on with, my family and I leaving Pasadena to get out of the flames and the smoke and stuff, I'm hoping to have more of that in-between content once we get back to our apartment, which is just safe, by the way.
Yes.
So we were very, very fortunate in that regard.
You got some great ideas for quick hits. So there are some good, so there are some things in the hopper, but it's been wild. It's been wild. And that's okay.
We've appreciated everybody who's donated to Convoy of Hope, which 100% of your donations go to helping the victims of the wildfires from the Palisades to Altadena and beyond. And Mike, we want to do a little something. And I know some of you have already donated, and I want to offer this to those who have as well. If you could send us a confirmation of your donation, whether that be by DM on Super Halo Bros on Instagram, or maybe you DM us at Locked On Angels on Twitter, that sort of thing, we would love to put you in the running for some Super Halo Bros merch. In fact, I'm wearing this one right now, and this is one of my favorite shirts. It's got our logo on it, and of course, you could pick out whatever shirt you want, but we would love to put you in the drawing for some Super Halo Bros merch because of your donation. Just want to incentivize that, give back a little bit of something to you guys just for supporting Convoy of Hope. So thank you for doing that. Hey, on today's show, what if Taylor Ward stayed? Would that be so bad? Would that be such a problem? We've talked about how much teams have been inquiring about him and asking the Angels about him. But what would he contribute if he stayed? Mike, let's start with what Ward has to offer this season. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, we've spent a lot of time this offseason talking about the potential Taylor Ward trade. And the reason why he's a potential trade piece, John, is because he's 31. He still has 2 seasons of control left, which is always a great thing. His arbitration number is not super high. It was supposed to be around 9 to 10 million. It was only at 7 million.
Yeah,
and so
7.825 million. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a great number. He has drawn a lot of interest and was somebody that was potentially in conversations to be traded last offseason, also during the trade deadline and this offseason. And something that you and I have talked about on this show is that his value is probably not going to be any higher than it is right now with 2 seasons of control left, his low contract number. So all of that is the reason why we've been talking about this, not because we hate Taylor Ward, but we've been talking about this because this has been the narrative out there and a lot of rumors surrounding him. It sounds like Perry's asking for the moon. That's a whole nother segment, right? But that's why we're talking about this. But what if he stays? What if the Angels keep Taylor Ward? And if they want to be competitive this season, could Taylor Ward potentially offer a competitive piece on this roster as it currently stands, Johnny? So why don't you take us back to where Ward has been first when he first broke out with the Halos.
Yeah, and 2022 is when he had his big break. So I want to take us back to that season. Mikey got into 135 games, 564 plate appearances. Listen to this slash line at the end of the year: 281, 360 on base, 473 slugging, an 833 OPS. Mikey had a 134 OPS plus. That's 34% better than league average, 23 home runs, and 65 RBI that season. 2023, he had 97 games, 409 plate appearances. Remember, this is where he was hit in the face with the fastball, and so it cut his season short.
Yeah.
So 253 average, 335 on base, 421 slugging, 756 OPS, 105 OPS plus. Then last year, he got a full season, 156 games, 663 plate appearances, 246 average, 323 on base, 426 slugging, and a 748 OPS. That was good for a 111 OPS plus, 25 home runs, 75 RBI.
Yeah, and then remember, 2022 was the season where he ran into the right field wall on May 20th. He ran into the wall on May 20th, and so that really hindered his huge start. He really started off great that season. In April and in May, John, his OPS was wild. He had a 1.28 OPS in April and a 1.043 OPS in May. And from April 16th to May 20th, when he hit the wall, his slash line was 370 batting average, 481 on base percentage, 713 slugging, and a 1.194 OPS. The next month, he was hurt and he only hit 207. Remember, it's when the Angels started that awful losing streak as well. And then he finished September strong, John. 345 batting average, 397 on base, 575 slugging, and a 972 OPS.
Then in 2023, he started out slow. Remember, this is the year that the Angels fielded a pretty competitive team. They had filled all the gaps in the outfield and the infield. You know, they had Hunter Renfroe, Gio Urshela. Those were big, great moves that they made. But he started out slow that year, Mike. 208 average in April, 261 in May, 258 in June. Not bad, but not the hot start that he had gotten off to before. Yeah. He did bat leadoff for most of April. Then May and June, he kind of saw him between leadoff and hitting 5, 6, and 7, even 9th sometimes. But then he gets into July, has 19 games where he hits 304 with a 1,043 OPS, and he was on a tear. And then Alek Manoah of the Blue Jays can't control his sinker fastball, hits Taylor Ward right in the face, and that ended his 2023 season. So right as he was getting hot is when he got hit and had to end his season.
Last season, he started off pretty great. He had a 273 average in April, then 261 in May, struggled in June and July, didn't even hit 200 as a batting average.
No.
Heated back up in August, was at 283, then September, 286. So, Johnny, if we were to summarize the last 3 seasons of Taylor Ward, it would look like this. His batting average was 260. His on base was 339. His slugging was 441, and his OPS was 779. He had an OPS plus of 119, 19% better than league average. These are his 162 game averages if we combine all of the last 3 seasons. And so it tells us what he would do on average if he played a full season in 2022 and 2023. So these are the averages, full season. He would have had 26 home runs, 28 doubles, 78 RBIs, 68 walks, and 152 Ks.
So having said all that, if you take the last 3 years of Taylor Ward, here's the range he's going to sit in. It's about 260 to 280, sometimes 250 in a bad month. And then, he hit under 200 in 2 months last year.
Right.
But if you were to, boil it all together, 260, 280, somewhere in between there, 20 to 26 home runs, and then about 65 to 78 RBI, Mike. So is he worth the $7.825 million that he settled with in arbitration? To me, that's kind of a deal for the kind of player you're getting for Taylor Ward, right?
Yeah, John, if he played for the Dodgers, the Mets, the Yankees, the Braves, his arbitration number would probably be $15 million because of the numbers he's putting up. And then they are competitive teams.
Or if he was a free agent right now.
Taylor Ward as we've said often, he is a good piece for a competitive team.
Right.
He is a extender of the lineup. He is a threat. If you're going to pass a Mike Trout in the lineup, you're going to put him on base. He could be the guy that could make your team pay. We just haven't been able to see him on the field fully, Trout on the field fully. And so I don't think we've felt the full impact of Taylor Ward. I know defensively, we can be frustrated with him. I know the emotion doesn't come out like maybe with other players. Garrett Anderson comes to mind, right? Like how people were frustrated with Garrett Anderson when he played on this team, even though he was great. And so I know that he's not perfect, but this is why we call him a piece. If he was batting in a lineup behind Ronald Acuna Jr., he would be a protection for Ronald Acuna Jr. And he would be somebody that would probably get about $15 million in arbitration, because those numbers he's putting up are quality numbers, especially if you're in a lineup with other quality hitters. And so I do think that he's a bargain for the Angels at the price they have him right now.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because, you know, he was a piece in that 2023 lineup, especially when you had Trout for most of the season until July. You had Rendon for most of the season until July. You had guys like Urshela and Renfroe. And then, of course, guys got hurt, right? So that was a big part of it. But didn't get off to such a great start in that lineup where he can be just a piece. And Mike, we'll talk about it a little bit later in our third segment. But the fact is when you look at where Taylor Ward has hit in the lineup and the roles he's been asked to play over the years. I mean, it started in right field. He went to left field, but we all know that he was drafted as a catcher. They did that. They moved him to the infield. He played some third base and did that. And then he played that one game at first base and fell over last season. Was that 2 seasons ago?
Yeah.
But all that to say, the guy has been asked to do a lot. And I think I've seen suggestions of, well, maybe we move him back to third. No, leave the guy alone. Yeah. Let him be a left fielder, because I know, like you mentioned, we get frustrated with his defense and there's a lot of nonchalantness sometimes, but the numbers do say that he's an above average left fielder. And we're going to make some comparisons here in a minute. But the fact is that, yeah, he's not bad out there for a left field guy. So I think when you roll it all together, you've got this guy who's going to hit you 260 to 280, hit you 20 to 25, maybe 26 home runs, maybe even 30 at some point. Like if he's a piece in a lineup, like you mentioned, and he's a sneaky threat, then maybe he can reach that number, especially, you know, when he's on pace to do damage like he's done in the past with those hot starts that he's been on. I say all that because the fact that he's half the price of what he would be in free agency, I think is a deal. And so this is what you're getting with Taylor Ward. Now, we all know money in the Angels and Artie Moreno is the biggest factor here. And so if the money that they saved with Taylor Ward doesn't go to other areas of the team, that's going to be frustrating. They have to add some bullpen arms. I know I tweeted this the other night from Locked On Angels, just a summary of the article I wrote about the bullpen and some of the guys who are coming back this season. And the bullpen is actually in pretty good shape, but it doesn't mean they shouldn't add to it. But I think that the money needs to be spent, the money that they've saved by not signing some $15 million, Michael Conforto or whatever. Taylor Ward has a lot to offer at a pretty good price. And I think that money is worth spreading around to other areas of the team, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's always going to be the tension with the Angels. Hey, we save money here, but are they going to use that money to benefit the team there? And that's where a lot of fans get frustrated with Artie Moreno. It feels like Perry Manassian has been able to work through that a bit, but that's why I think they still need to add to this team, even if it's not a big money free agent or that's a pitcher or a hitter. They still need to add to this team because this team needs to be a major league roster, not a Zach Neto and then an Eric Wagaman, right? Like you want to go to somebody that is like a Kevin Newman, that you can have him fill in and not be somebody that drops off completely. About a 2-WAR player is an average player in baseball right now.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up on Locked On Angels, we've been talking about Santander, and if the Angels did sign him, it would seem to indicate that Taylor Ward might be on the move. So we thought, what do the Angels gain with Santander? What do they gain with Ward? We're going to make that comparison right here on the show, and that's coming right up.
Johnny, Game Time helped us, my wife and I and Gavin, go to a Third Eye Blind concert last year.
That's
and
right.
One of the things that Third Eye Blind needs to know from this Gen Xer is that when you're doing a concert for Gen X people, even though there are Gen Z and maybe even Gen Alpha there, is that bringing out Machine Gun Kelly is not a good idea. He got booed. He got booed by all of us 40-year-olds because we wanted to see Third Eye Blind, and that's it. But we got our tickets.
That's awesome.
On Game Time, and they're making it really easy for you to find your tickets. They have this new feature called Game Time Picks. It filters out all of the fluff so that you can only see the incredible deals on the seats that you want. And with Game Time Picks, I was able to find some really amazing deals, really amazing seats to go to this concert. Was able to see where I was going to sit before we got there. And for me and my dad energy, I needed to know that. So take all the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. You can download their app right now, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account and use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Mike, we're continuing our conversation on what if Taylor Ward stays, doesn't get moved, doesn't get traded. He obviously took a team-friendly arbitration deal at $7.285 million, 0.825 million. Team-friendly deal there. Tells me dude just wants to play.
Yeah.
Dude just wants to play, wants to win, and he's consistent, and he's always there. So now that we've talked about where Taylor Ward has been, what he can offer to the Halos, what are the Angels missing out on if they decide to keep him? Namely, we're talking about Anthony Santander, or Anthony, as he's referred to around these parts. Considering if the Angels did make a move for Santander, that would probably open up a door for a Taylor Ward trade. Now, we know Santander had a monster 2024, 44 home runs, 102 RBIs, 235 average, 308 on base, 506 slugging, and an 814 OPS. He was 34% better than league average with a 134 OPS plus. Let me summarize, just like we did with Taylor Ward. We took 22 through 24. Let me summarize where Santander has been the last 3 years. So if you combine and average out all of his line over the last 3 years, he's hitting 244. He's getting on base 317, 478 slugging, a 795 OPS. He's been 25% better than league average over the last 3 years. Mike, if we were to, again, run that 162 game average for his counting numbers, he would round out to about 37 home runs a season, 101 RBIs, 32 doubles, 59 walks, and 142 strikeouts.
Yeah, so based on that 162 average, we want to break down what Ward and Santander contribute to their teams and use last season as a reference point. So first, let's talk home runs. Santander with the Orioles last year, of course, hit a bunch of home runs, over 40. His 162 game average over the last couple of years, 37 home runs a year on average. Now, the Orioles hit 235 home runs last year, and 37 home runs would account for 16% of the team's home runs. Now, Taylor Ward, in the same context, the team last year hit 165 home runs, the Angels did, and Ward's 162 game average is 26 home runs. 26 home runs account for, hey, look at that, 16% of the team's home runs. So when it comes to how many home runs have been hit by the team and how many home runs would be hit by the player, they're virtually the same power hitter on their teams, aren't they?
Yes, exactly. Now, when it comes to runs batted in, Santander was on a team with the Orioles that had, good grief, 759 RBIs last year. The Orioles did. Now, Santander's 162 game average is 101 RBI, and then 101 RBI would account for 13% of the Orioles team RBIs last year. Ward was on an Angels team that hit 596 RBI last year. His 162 average of 78 RBI would account for 13% of the team's RBI. So again, just like home runs, Santander and Ward have contributed percentage-wise the same amount to their teams. Obviously, the Orioles were a better team.
Right.
Had way more home runs, way more RBI, so that shrinks the percentage for Santander. But in terms of what they're contributing to their individual teams, they're right in line with each other. Now, based on the 162 average, Santander would put up 11 more home runs than Taylor Ward and 23 more RBI than Taylor Ward. So take that into consideration. But it is funny to me that in terms of what they contributed individually to their specific teams based on the total numbers, 16% they contributed home run wise, and they contributed 13% of the team's RBI to their individual teams as well. Now, Mike, Santander does have the edge over Ward in terms of power, obviously, right?
Yeah, his 234 isolated power, that was his average over the last 3 years. Ward is 181 ISO power. So obviously Santander a bit stronger, a bit more powerful for the Orioles. Now, when it comes to strikeouts, it's interesting. You would think that maybe Santander over the last 3 years would strike out more, but actually Taylor Ward has a 22.2% K rate and Santander 20.5. When it comes to walks, which is a part of the tension when you get Santander, on base percentage isn't great. Taylor Ward had a 9.9% walk rate last few years, and Santander 8.5% walk rate. And then can't gloss over the defense. We mentioned it briefly about Taylor Ward. Last season, Ward had 3 outs above average, which is pretty good range, and he had a 0 arm value, which is neutral, and he was in the 72nd percentile in arm strength. Santander had a negative 2 outs above average, a negative 1 arm value, and was in the 68th percentile in arm strength. And then Johnny, let's talk about, well, obviously Ward wins on defense, right? He's going to win in the category of defense, which ironically Ward won on defense, right? And so that's a benefit to Taylor Ward. But the big question is we know what we're getting with Taylor Ward, but we also know that Santander brings this lineup potentially, if he comes to the Angels, he's a threat. He's a power threat. He could be somebody that really could be an intimidating factor in this lineup. But Ward's the more affordable player here. Santander is probably going to be between 22 million to 30 million. So how do you, Johnny, weigh these two against one another?
Yeah, I don't get me wrong. I love me some power, some pop. And if you imagine a lineup where you got to face Trout and Santander and Jorge Soler, like, good grief, man. That's a meaty part of the order that's any playoff team would love those 3, 3, 4, and 5 or what have you. And I think that is just what's tempting to me when it comes to having Santander. Now, when I consider Taylor Ward, I know what I'm going to get with Taylor Ward. And like I said, the 162 average, you're going to get about 20 to 25, possibly 30 home runs. You're going to get like competent defense in left field. And I also think that, again, the affordability is a huge factor here because I just really want to see the Angels spend in other areas. And I know they haven't done everything we'd like them to do yet. Mike, go out and get freaking Brendan Rodgers already. Go get that infielder, bring him in. He's a stud and he's sitting out there without a job. Like, the Angels got to go get him and spend some money, and you saved money in arbitration. Maybe that's what they're waiting for, Mike, is just finishing out those arbitration numbers so they know what they have in front of them. But I say all that because I don't think you can go wrong with either one of these guys in the lineup. They both have their pros, they both have their cons. But if the Angels are going to stick with Taylor Ward, you look at this comparison of what they offer their individual teams, they're right in line with one another. Again, obviously, Santander hits way more home runs, way more RBI. But Mike, do you need Taylor Ward to hit 44 home runs in a lineup that has a healthy Mike Trout and a Jorge Soler at DH? And then guys who can hit 20 home runs in Neto, Ohapi, and Joe Adell? I don't know that you need that. I don't know that the power has to come from Taylor Ward in the same way that you would get that from Santander. Santander is not a piece in this lineup. Taylor Ward is a piece in this lineup. So it almost makes me think that Taylor Ward will be a little bit more successful if he's able to hide a little bit more, because we've seen that, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with Taylor Ward in this lineup, he's got to play he's going to play the role that he only can play. Santander makes this lineup a little bit more threatening, but as you mentioned, if we can get 20 from Neto and 20 home runs from Adele and 20 from Soler and 25 to 30 from Trout, like, you don't need a huge bat in Santander, and I think it makes this lineup very threatening 1 through 9.
All right, Mike, let's talk about the final verdict here. We're going to make a decision, you and I, but let's just kind of recap where we've been. If Taylor Ward stays with this team, we know as Angel fans who have watched this team all 162 games, fortunately or unfortunately, for better, for worse, right? If he stays with this team, we know what we're going to get. 20, 25, maybe 30 home runs in a good season.
Yeah.
We're going to get 265, 275 by the end of the year. We know that we're going to get a Taylor Ward hot streak in the, maybe at the beginning of the season. It's going to last a month, right? Or it's going to come in July or August. Maybe the Angels are stretching for a wild card spot and Taylor Ward gets hot in the month of August and he carries the team to, the third wild card spot. We also know that he's going to have a slump because this has been the track record for the last 3 years. He's going to have a hot month. He's going to have a cold month. Both of those will happen at some point during the year. And then I want to say this, other than like accidents, like running into a wall or a fastball to the face, right?
Yeah.
Taylor Ward stays healthy. He doesn't have a bad back. He hasn't had an oblique strain like all the other guys did in 2023. And I know Joe Adele did in 24. Other than, freak things, Taylor Ward has been like a really good pillar of health. He shows up and plays almost every day. He had 156 games, I think, last year, 154. And so he's somebody you can count on to be in that lineup almost every single day.
Yeah, and even though Ward doesn't match Santander's power, his best slugging percentage comes from, drumroll, the cleanup spot, right? Like he has a 520 slugging percentage over his career when he's batting fourth. That's in 339 plate appearances. I don't think that you get a true picture of who Taylor Ward is when he's batting fourth until maybe 500 plate appearances, right? But it is an interesting thing to note. And he likely won't be the cleanup hitter if Trout stays healthy and with Soler in this lineup. And so I think that you're probably going to see him more at the top of the lineup or maybe third or fifth. Like he might be in those spots. So he's probably not going to bat cleanup for the Halos this season.
Yeah. Third is an awful spot for him. You want to know his best spots? It's leading off. And then it's batting fourth. And they've honestly put him in the fourth spot when guys like Trout have been hurt. And so they have no cleanup hitter to go there. And so it's been Taylor Ward in the past, and he's had a lot of success from that fourth spot. I go back to the roles that he's played over the years, Mike, where he's bounced around, and that includes the lineup too. It comes down to where are you going to put Ward, give him a consistent spot. And they did that last year, batting third. I just don't think, based on the numbers and the sample size and the full season's worth of sample we got of him batting third, not his best spot, not the best place for him. It's like, there's that mental jump you take sometimes where you have to step up and you just unlock a new level of confidence and skill that you didn't know you had. I wonder if that's what happens with Taylor Ward batting cleanup. And sometimes, and maybe he's just like, I'm the dude today. I'm Albert Pujols. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's him sometimes. Right?
Hey, I batted cleanup once in church league softball, and I felt like, Reggie Jackson, man, I was ready to go. But there's a confidence boost that happens there. So, and you made this point already, but can I just reiterate, like Ward, he doesn't really have to be Santander, a type of hitter like that. If Soler can be Soler, and we're going to have a conversation about him next week. And if Trout can be Trout, right? Mm-hmm. And so you also got to think the young guys are going to take a step forward. So if Logan O'Hoppe is not playing catcher every single day, Neto is healthy, Adele keeps his swing where it's at, John, there could be like 5 to 6 guys in this lineup with double digits in home runs.
Mm-hmm.
And so you may not need that huge bat to come in, and then just keeping Taylor Ward. So the big question is, are you okay with keeping Taylor Ward?
I actually have been thinking through this a lot. And when I think about Taylor Ward and the season he could have in 2025, especially if we have the lineup that we're expecting to have, Mike, maybe his value isn't the highest it is right now. Maybe because he has 1 year left at the end of this season, that's the time you move Taylor Ward. That's the time that you think, you know what, man, he just hit 285 this season. He hit 30 bombs. Like if maybe the best is yet to come for Taylor Ward. I know that looking at the last 3 seasons has been our sample size, but if we get a lineup with Taylor Ward in it, that's where he's a piece and he's surrounded by those big bats, I think a lot of good things can happen there. Real quick, I want to shout out Silent E on YouTube who left this comment, and it was in regard to arbitration, but I'm paraphrasing here a little bit. He said, Ward deserves a chance. And Silent E said, he deserves to be paid more. And I agree with that. But he said, but essentially, Ward deserves a chance because he's been the guy. While Trout has been out and Rendon's been out, Ward has stepped up and has done the best that he can to help keep this team afloat. And so I'm excited to see him in a lineup where he doesn't have to be the guy and on occasion is the guy. And I think we're going to see a lot of that in 2025.
Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB with our friend Sully. You can find his show on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hey, we appreciate you being here today. Give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels and connect with us at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Again, if you've donated to Convoy of Hope or plan to, we'd love to enter you in a little drawing for some Super Halo Bros merch. So just send us a confirmation and get that to us over social media. Send us a message, tweet at us, whatever you got to do to get that confirmation over to us. We'd love for you to do that. Mike, what do we have on deck for Friday's show?
John, because of the holidays and the new year and navigating a new baby and fires and life, right? We have a stockpile of really great voicemails.
A cornucopia.
We are going to share those with you from 2024, the end of the year and the beginning of this year. A lot of good conversation. It's going to be Fan Mail Friday voicemail edition on Friday on Locked On Angels.
All right, looking forward to that. We hope you'll come back and join us for Fan Mail Friday voicemail edition. We got to clean out the voicemails, do some spring cleaning early in January. So thanks for being here until tomorrow or Friday's show. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
All right, y'all. Take care, stay safe, and we'll see you back here on Friday.
Hear me out. I think when Roki Sasaki signs, then some of those big free agents will sign.
Oh, good call. I like it.